Hello, all, and welcome to Divided We Fail. This is I like to call it a front porch political chat podcast, because the goal here is to present a political dialogue that is not rooted in ideological symmetry. And by symmetry, that's a word I made up, meaning cementing. No demagoguery, no identity politics, just straight up old school political discourse that you would have in front of other people confidently without making a goddamn fool out of yourself. And obviously, in order to have political discourse and conversations, you have to have a person to talk with. And that will be my friend James, who I grew up with. James, if you want to say hello.
Hello.
And this first episode is actually not going to be political. We have a little, I don't want to say game that we want to play, but we want to bring this to the forefront without any colors attached to our names. No red, no blue, no purple. We just want to introduce ourselves as people. And then that way we can start out with who we are, what our background is, what our story is. And maybe that will fill in the gaps later on as to why we believe the things we believe. And so James is a shy boy, and he wants me to go first. So I will start out by saying that my name is Travis. I am a 33-year-old white male. I am of Italian-American descent. And I live in a rural portion of New York State. I live 25 minutes from the border of Canada. I'll call it a military town. It's become a lot more military as I've aged, but it is definitely rooted in the economic basis of where I grew up. To get started, I guess I'm already started, but to go further, I went to public school. I was raised Catholic, shocker, Italian American. I have two sisters, blood sisters, who are 8 and 10 years older than me, and I have one adopted sister who is 10 years younger than me. My parents are still married. They have been married for, let me do the math, almost 50 years. They were married in 76. So in 2026, they'll have been married for 50 years. So they just had their 48th anniversary. That feels surreal to me. They've actually been married longer than half their lives. I have boomer parents. They're in their 60s. My father's 65. My mother is 63. They were also raised in rural upstate New York. My family is, I don't want to say the word legacy family, but my last name is a name that people know around the area. My father worked for the municipal water department. My mother was in the school board. I had uncles that were in the local Catholic high school as football coaches. My other uncles were basketball coaches. My grandfather owned a store. So people knew my family in a small town. I don't know, James, was it 25,000 was the last census? Do you know?
Something like that, yeah.
There's your range.
Around there.
Yeah, 20 to 30,000 people. It fluctuates depending on how many people are stationed here. But between 20 and 30,000 people. So I went to public school. I wanted to get the fuck out of New York State when I graduated high school. So I left and went to college in Jacksonville, Florida, at Jacksonville University. I originally went to school for physical education. If you could see the way I look, you would know that I did not pursue that career. I ended up getting into sports business or sports administration, however you know it, basically to learn the legalese and business operations of professional sports. I ended up working in single A professional hockey for 2 seasons as a director of operations for a very small hockey team and then was a little disillusioned by that career path. I realized that it was just an MBA with sports logos instead of Viacom and BlackRock. So I sort of left that and lost my way for a little bit in my late 20s, mid to late 20s. This is a 26 years old. So from 26 to 30, I was just a salesman for an appliance store, a local appliance store, old school car sales kind of guys. And then I went to school, oddly enough, not triggered by COVID, but at the beginning of COVID, I was already accepted. And I started that January, and then the whole world shut down, and I was already going to school online, so like that really wasn't a big deal. But still, this is crazy. Went to school for computer science, graduated with a bachelor's in computer science, and got my master's in interactive game and media design, basically game design. So I have an IT background. I now work as a data analyst for a mechanical contractor local to the area that does anywhere between $5 and $15 million a year, blue collar work. I do work in the project management department, so it's hit or miss on whether or not somebody's a mechanical engineer or they just were a pipe fitter for 30 years. Um, and yeah, so my a little bit about my family. My parents, they are currently in rural Tennessee, located in between Knoxville and Pigeon Forge. On if you know the shape of Tennessee off the tip of your head, they are in that little jut out to the east. So how it goes, it's like a long rectangle and it juts out in one corner. They're in that corner on the basically near North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, like that area. If you're listening to this, I don't know what time, at what point you picked this podcast up, but this is very soon after Hurricane Helene. My parents are right in that area. They're working with the local church there to supply FEMA documentation and paperwork for people, housing, temporary housing, food, that kind of stuff. So like that's where they are. If you think of a visual image of Appalachia, that's where they are currently. They did briefly live in the. I can't express my actual opinions, but they did live in the urban metropolis of Tampa Bay for about 10 years. And then they moved back up here when my grandmother got sick. My mother was her caretaker. My one sister lives in Queens. She is married to her wife and has a 5-year-old son. And then I'm going to repeat the same story, but in Connecticut for my other sister, who is married to her wife and has a 5-year-old son. That was crazy. It was unplanned, which was even funnier because obviously they're both lesbians. So to not plan that out and do it by accident it feels like I'm being trolled, but they haven't said that yet, so I guess I'm not. And then my little sister, she lives locally. She hasn't left the nest yet per se, but she's 23. She's got her whole life in front of her. We'll see where she goes. Outside of that, I'm married recently in 2022 to my beautiful, lovely wife, and we have a house that is a bit of a convoluted situation. It's technically a rent to own, but it's a long story that I don't really want to go into. So we'll say that I'm a homeowner because I treat this as if it's my home. The changes I make are applicable to my home ownership. And yeah, my wife's a teacher for context. Works in education, has for 6 years. And yeah, I think that's about it. I'm saddled with student loan debt, and yeah, I own a cool car. That's a fun
Yeah.
thing about me. I love sports and I love computers. If you want to know fun things about me that aren't my background, and that's that. So now I will let my good friend James here introduce himself to you. So the floor is yours, sir.
So mine's not going to be as fun or as long as that. Born and raised in the same rural town. Family all lives here. Families all always lived here. Dad left when I was 3. That's when the problem started. No. Um, just a normal, what I feel was a normal life growing up, you know, not this attached to the screen type thing we have going on now. Um, Worked for my local municipality, I think is the way you worded it, for several years. Um, got some fun trauma from that. Big advocate for mental health, PTSD, all that. As dealing with it, you will. Work currently as, how do I want to word this? I work with adults with developmental disabilities, where I met my lovely wife, who is now 4 months pregnant-ish, yes.
It's really simple math.
Like five and a half. Yeah, I'm not mathing tonight. With our firstborn child, we live together with our puppy and our cat so far. Uh, just kind of grew up, same small town, never really wanted to get away. See a lot of beauty in it, even though some others don't. And yeah, got a stepdad, got one older sister who's does something with business or other for a local company. I don't really know her exact title. Um, Born, raised Catholic. Kind of stepping away, have stepped away, should say, from the actual physical church due to scandals that I don't agree with and mishandling of said scandals. And that's about it. You'll notice as things go on, I am a weather weenie, to put it. I guess that's the only way to really word it. I have one class left until I have an associate's in paralegal, which after finding out that the market is not there, I've decided to switch courses and hopefully after we get a set schedule going with the kid and stuff, I'm going to be taking classes for meteorology. And
Fun fact,
yeah,
I learned
that's
that
about it.
right
I feel like I
now.
covered everything. Yeah, fun fact. Thought I told you that.
No, so loyal podcast
No.
listeners, you found out as I did.
Yeah, thought I told you that already. Maybe not, because I just found out I could weather weenie with you, what, last week? 2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
So, yeah, you opened a door you're not going to be able to shut on that one, just
that's
so you're
fine.
aware.
That's fine. Um,
But
for
yeah,
context,
I mean, that's really it.
if I'm not
I don't really
mistaken,
feel like there's too much.
James, you live in the same like side of town neighborhood that you grew up in, right?
Not same neighborhood, same side of town, yeah. North side.
I say neighborhood
Moved
because people
away.
refer to it as the north side.
Yeah. I say moved away. I lived on the south side for 4 years and then came back. There's something about it.
And for context for listeners, it's changing. It is changing, but when we were growing up, the north side was viewed as like the shit part of town.
It was, and I think unfairly so.
I think so too
Don't
because
get me wrong.
I think people associate the north side with like that one block right outside the square. They forget there's like a whole chunk of the fucking city left, but whatever.
Fine. Fine. We got the best pizza shops over here.
That's fair. Best wings in town, I think, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Pizza's debatable, but I think they're just a touch doughy.
Well, Cam's is on, Cam's is near the river. That's still
Cam's
south
is
side still.
center town, dude. Relax. No
Yeah,
neighborhood gets to claim Cam's.
that's fair. That's the best pizza in town.
I'm
But
probably gonna shock you, but I think Arts is.
really,
Yes, sir.
I've
That
never
Sicilian
had
sheet
theirs.
pizza, dude.
Oh, yes, I have.
Fuck me right up.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Um,
It's fair.
just
Good
to
pizza.
just to line up with like some stuff that I mentioned as far as demographics. You are Irish Italian.
A little bit, yeah. Scottish. Scottish, and a little bit Italian. Yeah.
Okay, so you're well. I mean, you're mostly Western European.
Yes.
Um,
Oh yeah, 100%.
right. We we're both big hockey nuts.
Yeah.
Um,
Baseball, football.
yeah, so we'll just sports in general. Like we nerd out on the Olympics.
Yeah. Still can't get over that guy winning the crossbow thing with no arms.
Dude, the
He
Special
did it with
Olympics
his
is,
feet.
or sorry, the Paralympics. You can't say the Special Olympics is
Or
different.
Olympics, yes.
Yeah, the Paralympics is crazy. What was I gonna say? Oh, you own your home.
Yes.
Okay, so we are both early 30 homeowner white millennials. If we're checking
Yes.
boxes
Straight.
in the demo,
Standard
yeah, yes,
white man.
cisgendered white millennial homeowner males. If we are checking boxes
Yes.
for our demographic content. Now, I will say that is going to make us completely irrelevant to a lot of the current political climate in terms of which we are avoiding, but identity politics, because I know that there is a large swath of people, especially on, I would say, on the extreme ends of both sides, who like to pick straight white cis males as like their scapegoat for everything. It's one side or the other. It doesn't make a difference, but in some way, either they're the worst or the best or everything in between. But I feel like that demographic gets called out a lot in every political realm that I have hung out in.
Absolutely. But I mean, to be fair, I mean, it kind of it kind of sounds like I'm defending us to an extent. I think identity politics is the most foolish thing you can do. Uh, it's just it's not a good way to make an argument.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I. We'll get into this eventually, but I think that there's a time and a place where it becomes relevant to the conversation, but I think it's over. I think it's overused. I think identity politics is overused and people use it as like an umbrella term now, and really it should be a very niche aspect of policy where that needs to be addressed because it's relevant to that section of policy. Outside of that, it shouldn't make a fucking difference. And I understand that I live
Yeah.
in a
No,
fantasy world where like politicians don't, they see the world in black and white and like they don't see color. But that's my personal view on politics.
yeah, and I think the biggest reason for this podcast in general is to kind of understand that even as straight white men, we vary on a lot of things.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
there's
That's a big thing. Another reason, and we talked about this before we ever got started, is that we wanted people to have an outlet. I don't want to necessarily even say an outlet, but just a place to go and listen to a meaningful dialogue that comes at the debate as much of a, I say neutral, but obviously you and I are on opposite political, I don't say opposite political spectrums, but we're on either side of the aisle, so we are a bipartisan friendship. Um, and it's important that people see that you can have a good, healthy political dialogue and in discourse, disagreements with somebody, and it doesn't have to. They don't have to. You don't have to fucking hate them afterwards. You can just agree to disagree and maybe come to a middle ground, which I feel like we haven't done in my entire life.
at the same time with those conversations, I feel like both of us have opened our mind up.
Right.
You know
And
what I'm saying? Like that, and that's exactly what I think the country needs right now is you can't there's a lot of so even after the last election cycle, you've seen a lot of dividing of family, dividing of friendships. I've seen it firsthand where people stop talking because of who they voted for. And but to me, it feels foolish. Like there's a lot of I feel like both sides are running for the outskirts and getting further and further away from each other,
hmm
when in truth, I feel majority of Americans are somewhere in the middle. And I think having being able to have an open dialogue and having somewhere someone could listen to where they're not gonna, you're not getting just political commentary from like, and I'll admit it, I've engaged in it in my time on both sides. Um, was registered with one party for years and then registered with the other, and now I'm gonna register as independent because both parties are crazy.
yeah,
But it's one of those things where the more people, more of these politicians run to the outsides, they're forgetting they're leaving millions and millions and millions of people in the middle.
right.
And just because you vote one way doesn't mean you agree with everything. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like having people with being able to, I don't know, I just feel like right now what we're missing is fruitful conversations,
I
and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and I obviously agree, and I also think we suffer we suffer from two major issues in our modern social media driven political environment. One being an echo chamber. There is not enough. If I mean, you've seen it, I've seen it, we've all seen it, where like somebody posts something, and it might not even be overtly political. It might just be like, "Oh, I didn't know this," or "This is crazy," and it's just an innocent posting, and then somebody comes in and immediately just like shits all over them in the comments, and you're just like, what out of this original post made you have to come at somebody so hard? Like it just, I feel like people put each other in boxes of extremism, like you said, like on either side. And it's like, oh, well, that person doesn't align with my belief on this, so they must be in that basket over there that's full of all these other things that I can't stand. When it could just be that your individual life experiences take that specific scenario differently, and so therefore you're going to have differing views because I know this might be really shocking for some people to hear. Um, Everybody didn't grow up the same, so your
Exactly.
interpretation of events, your interpretation of policy, your interpretation of, even you and I could hear the same exact sentence from the same exact person with the same exact tone, and we will walk away hearing two totally different things. It doesn't necessarily mean we're on the we could be on the same side of the political argument per se, but we're still going to interpret what was said to us completely differently because we have different life experiences for different people, and that doesn't make you a bad person. Like if you're an out and about fucking Nazi or you're an out and about fucking anarchist, want to burn the fucking anybody who disagrees with you down, that's yeah, that you're a fucking asshole for that. But if you're just like a very run of the mill thing, like for instance, I don't even really know what I can pull from that's like everything feels so partisan these days. Um, well, I mean, we grew up, the main debate was policy. The difference between Democrats and Republicans was fiscal policy and government size, and now it's not anymore. But you could have that debate. You could say, I want more influence on regulatory agencies, like for instance, like maybe the EPA. The companies get in arguments about that. If you're blue leaning, you're gonna be like, I want the EPA to be able to shut these companies down. And if you're red leaning, you were like, you know what, I get the EPA, I get what they're there to do, but they don't need so much power that they can just make it hell to start a small business. That used to be the debate we would have, and that was civil discourse. That was okay. You know, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Now, if somebody's like, "Hey, I don't want oil to be in my river," they're like, "Oh, you fucking libtard piece of shit, Green New Deal motherfucker." It's like, whoa, dude. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
Or the other side. I mean, we've all experienced it where you're like, "Hey, maybe we could rediscuss the whole time and age of sex education," and somebody's like, "Oh, you fucking Nazi." You're like, "Okay, dude, my bad. I just was trying to have a conversation about this." And it's just everybody's so fucking extreme. So
And
to
I feel like it's gotten to the point where like you call out something that truly is troubling and people attack you as if you just kicked their cat. Like, and 5 years ago, I think we can all agree, like, there's a lot of things we could all agree on that's troubling, but it's not, some people who are living in that echo chamber who are, moving with the tides of the way the politicians are, that they they justify things that they morally don't agree with. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So like, but because their party, they've been told if somebody disagrees with this, then they're a democracy hating Nazi. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like there's so much that's missed because people are too busy instead of thinking for themselves, they're living vicariously through talking heads and celebrities.
right. We have gotten to the point where we are now catering to the loudest people in the room instead of the majority of the people in the room.
And I feel like in a world that's as crazy as it is right now, people aren't thinking with their heads. They're just being told.
Mm-hmm.
And I know on here you're going to hear us, there's probably going to be times where we're going to get into a fierce debate. Like it's a fact of what it is. But I don't ever want somebody to take my words as gospel and think because this person, I mean, let's be honest here, we're not going to tell you which party we affiliate with. You're eventually going to find out. But personally, I do not want somebody to take my word as gospel
No.
because my word isn't gospel. My word is my experience.
Yep. Your word
And I
is
want, if anything comes from this, I want people to understand the most patriotic thing you can do is have civil discourse.
correct.
And the key word in that is civil,
Correct.
And it all started with our founding fathers. They didn't agree on jack shit, but they
Well,
came together to get stuff done for the country.
I mean, that might not be when you're talking about civil discourse. That might not be the best example. They used to get in literal fistfights, but it was a different time.
But yeah, like where today we can have civil discourse without it getting
Right.
to that point.
And I would like to, while we're talking about, like, specifically when you said, don't take what we say as gospel, it's our lived experiences. We are also going to do our damnedest to pull from obvious as truthful a source as we can when we're defending our positions. I'm not. I do not believe in having an opinion just to have one. I think if you're going to have an opinion, especially on things like it's one thing to have an opinion on things like abortion just because. It's another that's a moral decision, but things like fiscal policy, those kind of things, it's best to have something to back it up, because having, in my opinion, having just an opinion because I think this happens, that doesn't help anybody because then I don't know. It's how I personally feel. So we will do our best to back up whatever we can with where we got that information from. Obviously, I'm not going to fucking sit here and be like it's paragraph 2 of the AP article on fucking this highlighted here, but I will say, according to Reuters, blah blah blah. This is a statistic from the Oxford School of fucking Economics, blah, blah, blah. So that way you know where I'm getting my information from. You know how I formulate my opinions, and I would expect the same from you, James. I don't think you're just going to throw bullshit at me. I think you usually come at me with information that you have found from a reliable source. Obviously, we're not going to quote Breitbart in this fucking place just as much as we're not going to quote Hassan Piker. They're both pretty extreme on either side.
Like, and that's the thing. Like, we're gonna talk. Um, you're gonna find we actually agree on a lot more stuff than you would even imagine. We're going to talk news. It's not just gonna be straight debate 24/7. Um, but we're going to talk news, and obviously we're going to have different opinions on said news.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not, again, that comes from lived experiences and the moral standards we have set for ourselves, I think, is a good way to word that.
Yeah.
But again, at the end of the day, like, this is this is a break from the Ben Shapiro's, the Cenk Uygur, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
You know,
The Young Turks, we'll say, because his name is hard to pronounce.
yeah, the Young Turks. Yeah, we'll go with this is a break from Daily Wire, the Young Turks. Like, it is I want to say bias free, but I can't. It is well, actually no, because we're our commentary isn't bias free, but the stuff we're gonna bring you isn't biased in any way.
Right.
I think I speak for us both when I say we have no problem shitting on both presidential candidates and are curious as to how we got here. But as we go along, I actually you're finding out with Travis too. I have actually already started working on some thought-provoking commentary for political discussion,
Okay.
which I'm going to put out in a written format. We'll figure out where we're going to post that and stuff. But I would like to incorporate some of that into it as well. And we're just going to try and bring you the news without the huge bias and, show you. I guess we're going to try and live as an example of you can have difference of opinions and not hate and despise the other person.
Correct.
In a world full of chaos, we're trying to beat your calm. Um, I think that's really it. You know, weekly news. I think probably take a break for around the holidays, depending on holiday schedules and all that. But just something new and fresh that's not an echo chamber. And I think the good thing about having two people who are on opposite sides is we can't say anything ridiculous because you'll get a stand on this or we're going to call each other out.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that's something that's lacking in a lot of news cycles and a lot of news outlets is you can say something, and when you're in a room with five other people who agree with you or five other people who just don't care what you say,
Mm-hmm.
you don't get that all out,
Yeah, and I would say if
you
if
know?
if one of the most important things for me outside of presenting people with an option that isn't is and like you said, we're obviously biased. Everybody has bias, but we're going to try to present as neutral a position from the back end as we can and then formulate our own opinions based on information that was given to us. So we're not going to present propaganda to you. It's just our own personal beliefs. So that's the first and foremost, most important thing is that I don't care if we end up with 5 million subscribers. James and I will never sell out. It won't happen. It's just not who we are. And number two is holy fuck my ADHD. I just lost it as I was saying it. Whatever, dude. It fucking you get the point. We're trying to have a civil political discussion in an avenue where that's what it is. I want you to be able to break the echo chamber, and you're forced to when you listen to this because we are coming at it from two different perspectives, from two different opinions, from two different sides of the aisle. So you're no matter what, whether you're right leaning or left leaning, leftist. I don't even know what rightist. I don't fucking know. I guess uh, conservative is the word I'll use, but either way, you get it. So further left, further right, middle left, middle right. Either way, um, you get caught in an echo chamber because that's how algorithms work. They put you in front of material that you like and that engages you and reinforces your beliefs. This you might like one of us, you might like both of us, but either way, you're going to be forced to listen to both perspectives throughout the same half hour, 45 minutes. And so, hopefully, with that, it will get you out of that echo chamber of constantly being reinforced and never having to challenge your own beliefs. Because the most important thing, I think, is that as adults, we are capable of formulating new opinions when presented with new information.
You just said that beautifully.
Thank you. I,
You took everything I was thinking and just put it into a sentence.
it's a run-on sentence, but it was a sentence.
Hey, run-on sentences are still sentences.
My 10th grade English teacher would not be happy with me. But I
Well,
guess I don't know because I guess there's different rules for speaking than there is for writing in terms of I don't know either way. So that's the overview.
when you're speaking, put that period wherever you want.
Right. Is there anything that you feel like we didn't drop for our intro here, James? Anything that you want to like that we didn't get to say that you're thinking about that's like on the edge of your tongue, or do you think we've pretty much well covered it?
I think that's pretty much well covered.
I would agree.
I think, I think just as an introduction, I think that is well put together. And I just hope you enjoy hearing it. It's
Right.
the goal at the end of the day.
This is a pet project for us. It's nothing that either of us are vainly pretending. We're gonna be the next Rush Limbaugh, but it's something that we felt was important to do. It's kind of a pet project for us that we wanted to. We've been talking about. Geez, how long have we been talking about this?
Years,
Yeah, I mean at least 5, right? I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure the very first
at
time
least.
that Trump announced his candidacy, we were like, well, we got to get something going.
Yeah,
So I mean, that's
yeah.
for
And
perspective,
after countless debates on Facebook with each other
right?
over text message.
Yeah,
And that's like, and that I think that's the most important thing for people to realize is like we have gone at it,
yeah,
you know, and but at the end of the day, like we could go at it for 4 or 5 hours straight. That fifth hour, we could be sitting together drinking a beer
that's
and
what.
not no like ill feelings, ill will,
Yeah, and that's what I'm like. Like you and
you know.
for people who are listening to this, we recorded it. We're over Discord, but we obviously live in the same small town. So I mean, when I say to you that James and I could get into what feels like a very heated political discussion, end that podcast, and then go to dinner together right afterwards, and it would be like it never even happened because it defines who we are, but does it? We know who we are as people, and that's what's important.
Exactly. And I mean, obviously, if you knew some of our friends, you know that when we go at each other, we come at each other with facts. If someone says, "Give me the proof on that," we have usually 2 to 3 articles queued up for them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and actually, honestly, like the whole, I feel I gotta do it. Episode 1, I want to just say, this thought, this pet project that we have right now wasn't entirely our idea from the jump.
Oh,
Um, we have a we have a mutual friend who has been in a way asking
he's
for
been
this.
teeing us up on Facebook for years.
Like he would post just political shit, and he wouldn't. It wouldn't be anything necessarily that he even believes in, but then would just tag us in it. Like he would post it and then just tag us and wait for us to go. Uh, so we'll give a shout out to Trey. We got to have him on one of these times just for shiggles.
He'll fangirl.
Um, but he's excited.
He'll be like, I've been
He's
waiting for this my whole life.
pretty much, yeah. You know, he's not gonna get. We're not gonna be yelling and screaming at each other. We are. I can tell you right now, we're gonna get into some heated debates. But again, at the end of the day, we could immediately turn off the laptops, go out and have dinner, and it'd be like nothing happened.
And on top of what
And I
he's
think that,
right, and on top of what you're saying, just because I feel like context is important. We definitely skipped over this. When we say we're like gonna go at each other, I want all of our listeners to understand that we're gonna call each other fucking idiots, and we don't mean it like aggressively. It's just like default. That's like what we go to. Like, you're a fucking moron. It could be anything. It could be like you texting me and being like, "Hey, is fucking do you put I don't know. I fucking can't think of anything right now, but something
yeah, I
stupid."
was wondering where you're going with that.
I was trying to think of like a shitty mistake that you would make with Italian food, but you wouldn't because you've been friends with Nico and I for so long that you wouldn't make that mistake. But like that kind of thing, like you were
Funny that you mentioned that after the Cacho.
yeah, well, that I knew that was you trolling, but so like for instance, yeah, so like if you were like, hey, this cacio e pepe, which literally fucking means chicken and pepper, does that have pepper in it? I'd be like, you absolute fucking brickhead. Of course it does. And then I would continue to make fun of you. So like when we do get heated, if you hear those kinds of things, I don't want you guys to think that like that's us name calling. It's just our friendship. It's just who we are. We're very raw, very I would even say the word blue collar. Like, that's the kind of town we grew up in. There's no filter. It's just you say the politically inappropriate things. This is not going to be a PC podcast by any means. We will have respectful opinions and we will avoid like ridiculous things, but we are going to call each other fucking morons and idiots and other probably not professional things, but that's all done out of love. And it is in
Yes,
no way us being actually like angry with each other.
yes. I will just say, as I tell my wife sometimes, and my other friends, that my love language is gentle bullying. So she doesn't like it that much, but
She married you.
what are you gonna do? Yeah, I know.
She clearly likes it. She married you.
She hasn't. It's 2 years later. She still hasn't wisened up.
She's going to have your child, who you're going to gently bully.
I know. Yeah, it's okay. He's a boy. You can gently bully those.
You know what I thought of actually when you told me you were going to have a child? I
Oh God.
specifically you as a father, I thought of that. Have you ever I mean, me and you both like Dan Cummins. And
Yeah. Oh, of
his
course.
stand up where he says that he takes credit for Monroe's art because he used to criticize her as a child. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Where he's like Monroe used to bring me pictures and she used to know that with her mother and grandmother she would just get oohed and ah and she'd bring it to me and I'd be like, what the fuck is this? Oh, that's a dog? That's crazy because there's an actual dog right there. Do you think this looks anything like that dog? I just was like, that is James through and through as a parent. uh,
Hey, listen. Raise a champion. That's all that matters.
yeah, well,
I'm just.
be a healthy parent.
I'm ready to. Oh yeah. Of course. But no, I'm just ready to criticize my 2-year-old swing in the backyard.
Yeah, that's going to be brutal because neither of us know how to teach at that level.
No,
I learned
but I
that.
do know what it's not supposed to look like.
Yeah, I learned that I can't teach at remedial levels when I tried to coach midget league, which is 6 to 8 year olds, and I just got so unreasonably angry that I was just like, I can't do this. But I'm
No,
I'm really good at teaching older people how to like perfect their skills, but I cannot teach remedial skills.
no, it cannot do it. It'll be interesting, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, all right, brother. I believe the Yankees
Hope
game
you
is
play some hockey.
about to start.
Oh, it has started.
Oh, it is started. Yeah. So all right. So we're gonna dip out and go watch that. Um, and then we will be back with episode 2, where you will get to see our first discussion. I don't know what's gonna happen. Hopefully, nothing too fucking crazy. But um, thank you for if this is your if you listen to this whole 45 minutes and you're like, yeah, this sounds cool. I want to thank you for that because this is gonna be a fucking ride and we don't even know where we're going yet. So appreciate you.
And if you're listening to this thinking there's nothing on here, be patient. Give us a couple episodes. We're coming off a sports podcast,
Yeah.
so it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment,
A
but we'll see what's
comedy
going to
sports
happen.
podcast at that. It was framed in like a funny way, so this is much more serious.
There, there will be some comedic relief. Don't you worry, though.
Well, that's our nature, but yeah. All right,
Alrighty,
all right, brother. I
uh,
will catch you around.
sounds good.
Bye.
Good night, America.